name. Did you know? Always a right hand man. Did you know he's gonna make it clear? Did you know? Come on, listen here. Did you know?
Welcome to the Did You Know Show. My name is Brian Green, and today's show is sponsored by Always Best Care Senior Services. Today, we find ourselves downtown Wilmington in the headquarters of the United Way, and I'm with the lovely Michelle Taylor. She's the president and chief executive officer of the United Way, where she has worked for over 20 years. She's also the chief steward of the United Way brand in Salem County, New Jersey. United Way implements a statewide strategy to improve third-grade literacy, to ensure young people are prepared to enter college and or the workforce, and to help thousands of struggling families achieve financial stability. During COVID-19, which we are socially distant, as you can see, she helped raise millions for food, shelter, and other human needs, and she has worked with nonprofit leaders to ensure that the community has the resources they need throughout the pandemic. Michelle is also working to improve the racial equity and social justice in Delaware. She leads the Delaware Racial Equity and Social Justice Collaborative, which includes leaders from 200 grassroots organizations across the state, and she chairs the Community Policing and Engagement Subcommittee of the state's Law Enforcement Accountability Task Force, which is also preparing recommendations and improving policies practicing in Delaware. Without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to my audience Michelle Taylor. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Brian.
And so thank you for coming on to the show, and I really just want to get to it. I mean, reading your bio, I have to read it because it is so, I don't want to miss anything. You sound like a very busy person, and in my mind, you have a lot of irons in the fire. And so how do you prioritize your work as the CEO and that kind of thing? Take us through it. High level, how do you prioritize it?
Yeah, that's important, right? So, I would say we have a lot of priorities, but really we keep the heart of the community at the central decision making for the community. So take COVID, for example. Mm-hmm. When COVID happened, we knew that a significant amount of people were going to need more help. And so we made COVID a priority. And although we have a strategic plan in place right now that's focused on, as you just read, right, kids reading by third grade, which I'm extremely passionate about, right? Mm-hmm. You probably may get a chance to talk about it in a little bit. Preparing tomorrow's workforce and helping more families be financially empowered. We recognize that during the pandemic, it really is about helping more families be stable.
Right.
And how do we help them to meet just those basic needs that a lot of us, probably you and I, take for granted every day, right? Roof over our head, food, we didn't worry about what we were going to eat yesterday, how we were keeping the lights on. We were just talking about keep heat in our homes on a cool night.
Yes.
We have options, right, where a lot of families don't.
And when you talk about that, when you talk about things like racial equity and social justice, in my mind, a lot of the buzzwords and a lot of the different entities are diversity and inclusion. But more and more, we have this unconscious bias where you say we have options, but in my mind, you have to be self-aware of what your options are and really taking account that there are a lot of people that don't. So United Way, you guys are on the ground level, the ground swell. And, what are the current priorities right now? And you mentioned it briefly, the current state of affairs, obviously, that we're going through with the COVID-19. But United Way, what are you guys' priorities right now?
Yeah, so I would still say top of mind is COVID, right?
Okay.
COVID, pandemic has caused, which is a health pandemic, has caused this education pandemic, which is caused an economic pandemic. So, I think that on every angle, for a lot of families in our communities, they just didn't get struck by one way. They are been impacted by multiple ways. So if I'm a person that, because of the economy, that has been laid off, right, and I lost my job, now I'm figuring out how do I keep a roof over my head, how do I pay my bills. I'm now looking for new employment, or maybe I have a job. And disproportionately, why people of color, brown and black individuals, are getting COVID is because they're on the front lines, right? So they're the ones that's working in the supermarkets. They're the ones working in your Targets and Walmarts and Amazons that are keeping some of the basic things going, home care, right? that they need. And so they're always potentially more at risk. And not every industry early on had taken all the precautions for PPE, or you try to within a workforce, right? You and I manage businesses. but we don't necessarily control the environments in which our employees do outside of that, right? And so
Right.
then they kind of bring that in. And you take the environment right now, so school's open and has been open for, 4 or 5 weeks. And today, as a matter of fact, we are trying to deliver 100 Chromebooks still to kids. So, and still have a wait list of several hundred Chromebooks that people are calling us. Or in one community, someone called and said, we need 200 families need the internet service. So if you just think about it, how can kids are expected to learn? So if it's been several weeks and you don't have a Chromebook or a laptop, right? You don't have, and if you have that, you don't have the internet. How do we expect them to do their homework? How do we expect them to stay on track? How do we expect them to learn? That's where the inequities have come in because of the system, because those that have means, those that can afford it, they have those resources. And the families that don't are left looking to struggle or get on a wait list or figuring it out, right? And so that is a high priority for us. We would like to see every child in our state at least have what I call box one. They should at least have Chromebooks, and they should at least have internet.
Right.
And then you could talk about, right, how do we stand them up to make sure they have family and supports that's helping them to make sure they're actually on the utilizing the Chromebook, and they're actually going to class every day, and they're actually doing the homework, and someone's making sure they're helping them and assisting them. But that's kind of like, to me, like, you could say box 2 or 3. If box 1 is the Chromebook, box 2 is make sure they have internet, box 3 then is standing up what's the supports that they need. And we know, again, disproportionately, as a lot of these learning pods, you might have heard about it, have opened around the country. Again, they're generally for people who have the money to afford to put their kids in an environment where they have this additional assistance and resources.
Right.
So all of those things are important. And then the last thing is unemployment. We know that it's still at an all-time high in the state, even though the number is slowly coming down. And again, a plug, I know you're doing hiring for your own organization. But, we really want to get people back to work, and ideally back to work with jobs that's leading to a livable wage.
Okay.
Because if they're back to work and it's still not meeting their needs, then they're still dependent on the public supports, right? They still will need to be able to have some assistance to make sure that they can still just make ends meet.
It's interesting when I'm sitting here listening to you. Getting a child a Chromebook, and then getting them internet. I guess, and I can't hold United Way accountable. Then, what we think about for the folks that do work in the everyday, kind of computer world, who's the IT servicing when your computer doesn't work? That's just another level. And then if you're not used to that, just from my perspective, if you're not used to, manipulating computers, not only that, I guess for the teachers, it's a different kind of a challenge too. When you think of lesson plans and engagement. It's different when you have children in a room and you can kind of engage them one-on-one or give them a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But the other part of it too, which very few people I probably have to think unless it involves you, is when you have to deal with kids with additional needs, special education, or dealing with IEPs, or those kids that need a little bit more assistance, or kids that can't see, or have low vision or low attention span. It's all kinds of different things when you think about what, and I hate to say the new accolade, new normal. But you guys at the United Way, you're on the front line, and you just have so many different programs, and you broke it down. We start with education, and there's obviously some education insecurities, but then you got food insecurities, if you will. So how are you guys dealing with that in general? Like, are you able to help folks, get meals or get access to meals? When I think of United Way, my experience before I met you, and in full transparency to the audience, I probably, like a lot of people, thought that United Way was something that you filled out at your employer to make a designated donation to a 501c or a not-for-profit. But the more you dig under the surface when you talk about United Way, there are just so many different lines and levels of resources that you guys make, really palatable and understandable to folks. And you hit something too that I don't want you to before we move off of education, why do we center literacy, kind of the third grade, as a benchmark? Why is that the benchmark with literacy?
All right, so I'm glad you asked that, right? So, the research clearly shows that third grade reading scores is the best, strongest indicator of where kids will end up.
Okay.
So, right now we're even trying to see, when you just think about something that is as much as even the increased incarceration rates here in the state, or recidivism, right, that happens. If you were to do a study probably of the men or women that are in, and you were to look back, you would see probably that a large percentage of them have been left back at least 2 grades.
Oh,
2
wow.
grades. And most of them, right, you can look at they were not meeting their 3rd grade literacy test, right?
Oh.
And so we don't really talk about that in the sense of, we deal with a lot of stuff on the surface. So, even for United Way, we have to deal with the immediate.
Okay.
Think of a hospital. You're sick, you come in bleeding, you have an issue, you go into the emergency room. The emergency room takes care of you, stops the bleeding, but then they probably tell you, follow up with your primary caregiver, right, for additional services. Then your primary caregiver is going to try to give you some prevention treatments, right, things to get better, right, around. It's the same way when people are calling us. So when people call 211, right, which is the state's information and referral line, and those that don't know, if you have a medical emergency, you dial 911. When you have a health and human services emergency, meaning you need food, shelter, you need health care, your kids, you're not sure where to go, where testing is for COVID, you have issues, maybe questions that you might want to be answered, you dial 211. They're dealing with emergencies, right? People are calling us right now. I call that the emergency room, right? They have some critical need. Lights are about to be cut off on Friday. They're not usually calling me about the lights that's going to get cut off 30 days from now. They're calling me usually because their lights is Thursday. They're going to get cut off on Friday.
We need a plan. We need help.
We need help, right? This is about immediate help. And so we've been trying to work to help them immediately to connect them to resources such as food, right, to the emergency, or shelter, or whatever the issue may be. But then what we're trying to do is to see if we can't connect them to a coach that can help them to figure out how do they begin to navigate through this. Try to get them to come up with a short-term plan for how do they deal with all this crisis, help to almost to maybe de-stress it a little bit, help them think about, put it on paper, how might we because if you're struggling with your lights for this month, there's probably a good probability you're going to be struggling with your lights for next month. So getting them to kind of think about that, so that now that's getting them to see like their primary care physician, right? So now you're trying to say, let's try to get you into someone that can try to get you set up. And if you take your meds, work this budget, let's try to figure out what it is. And ultimately, we're trying to get people to empowerment, right? So then if you stick with it long enough, and then you're getting people to be able to say, how do I save for a car? How do I kind of kiss my landlord goodbye and start to do home ownership? How do I start paying off some of my debt, cleaning up my credit, whatever it is that they want to be able to do? But, I consider, people who are worried about how they're going to feed their babies today aren't really, they don't really care much about their credit. Right? You only can deal, because this is my immediate need, and you have to kind of deal with that first.
Wow. If you just tuned in, I'm sitting here with Michelle Taylor. She is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the United Way in Delaware. Stay tuned. We're going to continue our conversation with Michelle, and we're going to learn about some of the different programs and the different facilities that they have out here for you.
Always Best Care specializes in helping seniors who wish to remain in their home but need assistance. Our flexible care programs vary from hourly to live-in. Simply put, we're there when you need us. And Always Best Care is an approved Community Health Choices provider. Call today and we'll meet with you to develop a personalized care plan. Always Best Care Senior Services, doing more, caring more, and dedicated to exceeding your expectations. Always.
Always Best Care is a great place to work. Flexibility,
leadership,
purpose,
great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity, inclusion, compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Did you know?
All right, welcome back to the Did You Know Show. My name is Brian Green. I'm sitting here today with the lovely Michelle Taylor, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the United Way in Delaware. And we're talking about the different programs and resources that we connect individuals to. And Michelle, before we, in the last segment, we talked slightly about the 211 program. What is that about?
Right, so I'm glad you asked. So 211 is the state's information and referral services,
Okay.
and we actually are branching out to a couple of things. We have one component called Help Me Grow. So it's focused on from birth to age 8. But if you have a child, right, that you don't think that's meeting their developmental milestones, or you need a physician, or you have a question about maybe something related again to your child not being on track, there we have a group of specialists that just work with a coordination of partners across the state that tries to really to connect them early to the resources. Back to what we were saying earlier, that's the early intervention
Okay.
piece, right?
Okay.
So it's not crisis, but I would say it's like trying to connect people to that physician, to that resource, whatever that service is that's in the middle before it becomes a crisis, right? And we
Being
also
proactive.
yeah, it's trying to be proactive, right? And that's their developmental delays, if it's cognitive, physically, mentally, socially, academically, all those things. The state has stood up, trying to continuum of services to make it much easier to provide supports for those early years. Back to why third grade matters, right? So that's up to that third grade reading score.
Interesting.
But we won't talk about it. They also research says you have 1,000 days to build a brain. Kids learn more in those first 1,000 days of their life than they do pretty much of any other time in their adulthood. So those early years really, really matter. But the second thing we're doing now is we have something called 211 press 4. So you dial 211, but you just press 4. If you are our family, if you're a parent, a caregiver, and you need support specifically anytime, but specifically related to this digital environment that's gone on during COVID, that while we're in this virtual environment, you don't know where you may need a Chromebook, you might need internet services, you may say, I need tutoring supports for my kids, right? I just need to be able to understand that early on. It could have been, where are options? I have to work every day. And so where might I take my child during the day so that they have a structured environment for that? So whatever, we have set up that line to hear from parents, and we're not sure, those are the common reasons why parents call us. But we said that we're willing to be flexible and agile, and to be able to hear what are the needs of parents during this digital environment, and how might we help to better support that as a community. And we'll know more, right, when parents call to tell us, and if they come up with something we can't meet. But that's 211 press 4. I also want to make sure people know that we do have the line set up, and we have Hispanic and Spanish speaking individuals that answer our calls. There's a line specifically set up for that population and that community, so we want to make sure, right, that people know that as well. But really, if you call and you say, oh, I need food, what we do is try to connect you to someone. You tell us what zip code you're in, you tell us where are you, and we try to connect you to the closest resource to where you are, right?
And so let me just jump in really quickly. We were talking kind of offline. I want the viewers to know that the 211 program, while we are down here with Michelle Taylor down in Delaware, this 211 program for United Way is a national.
It is a national program. 211s are national. So anyone can call 211 in any state across the country. Right?
And if you're looking at the bottom of your screen, you can obviously connect with the United Way of Delaware, and they are a fundamental resource. And we were also talking, and I want to get off my head. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to bring you back to, you have a lot of people that reach out to the United Way when they can't get other ancillary services, whether it's unemployment or I imagine any other type of supplemental situation, trying to use you guys as kind of an advocacy group. And you sometimes have to reposition them, but you give people resources. I guess in my mind, can you walk us through what people can we level or really kind of measure or help their expectations when they go to the website? What do they see? What do you see when you go there? What's the experience?
So if you go to the website, you can get some of the same information that you could if you call. So if you go to the website and I say that I need help with my utilities, and I put in my zip code, all the organizations that are in my community will come up with their names and numbers. The difference with us, if you call, so you can call on your own. If you call for us directly, they will connect you, but then they'll also do a follow-up call with you to make sure that you were actually helped. And given now with COVID and when people call, we'll ask people would they like to be able to talk to a coach or a community navigator. It's kind of like, I used to work at McDonald's, so when people come in for a hamburger and fry, you say, well, would you like an apple pie with that? So when we have callers on the phone, we're also saying if you're calling for one thing, would you like to talk to a coach? And if they say yes, or a navigator, the intent is that person then will try to be trying to connect with them more of a longer term
situation.
Like really situation. So now I'm really trying to understand your needs. I'm trying to understand, what were you calling in today? What other needs? I might be doing inquiry about maybe what other needs you may have and ways that we can begin to help. We try to ask you, do you have kids in the house under 18? Do you mind telling us how old they are? What school districts do they go to? Are they set up? Do you have all the Chromebooks? Do you have the internet you need in your home? We're really just trying to make sure from a holistic perspective. Because when you're trying to help kids, really, our real focus is to help adults. It's a 2-generational strategy.
Right.
When families are strong, when adults are good, generally kids are good.
Right.
Right? It doesn't work, vice versa.
One without the other.
One without the other doesn't work. So we're really trying to say if we can try to provide better supports for parents and families and caregivers, the likelihood then that will trickle down and the infrastructure they put in place, then kids will be stronger because of it.
Without naming names, Michelle, can you give me 1 or 2 examples of how United Way has helped people in the real world situation? You've gone over it, and I guess I don't want to be redundant, but you've given so many different scenarios. But people that are listening, when we talk about being self-aware, I guess in my mind, if I have an immediate need, and you said it off air, if I have an immediate need, I'm not, people don't call you for, and I'm paraphrasing your words, people don't call you for a bill that's due a month from now. People call you for an immediate need now. My lights are about to get shut off now. It's panic. This is what it is. This is what's in front of me. So, what can you say? Again, to the original question, without naming names, can you give me 1 or 2 examples of how United Way has helped people? So people, again, I want people to come to United Way expecting one thing, not something else.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point. So you can expect if you come to us, right? And then talking right now through us through 2-on-1. So a good examples of it is like, we got a call last Saturday from a mother who had kids who was homeless.
Okay.
And so, it's a Saturday and a lot of places are closed. Like we have amazing partners with the state, and I want to give a shout out to DSS for their support because our team, I didn't say this with COVID, we now expanded. We went from 5 days a week to 7 days a week.
Okay.
We expanded our hours. Now, we may not always stay 7 days a week. I know my team would like to go back to 5, but, we did that intentionally because I said needs don't stop on Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay.
And literally what we see is a lot of weekends, someone calls us because they're homeless with kids. And so what we're able to do is to put them up in a hotel or motel, wherever that they actually are, for maybe like for Saturday night and Sunday night until we then can connect them to services on Monday. So at least, you get them off the street, you get them in a hotel, we coordinate with DSSS to make sure they have food, that the family has food, they have a roof over their head, they have those basic needs, and then they have a connection to a service, to another one of our partners that's trying to get them more stable housing for the long haul. So like we will stay with that family. Sometimes we've had to put them up for a week while things are still being worked out, right?
Okay.
So other examples, as I said, like people may be calling because families were calling saying, my child needs help. I got an 8th grader and I have a 5th grader. One's behind in English, one's behind in English and math. Can you help us figure out how to catch up? And so in this case, we were able to connect them to a tutoring services that we stood up from kindergarten to 12th grade. We're doing it with one of our partners, Fame, that is now providing virtual tutoring free. We're making sure that it's free of charge, right? Because it has to be accessible for parents.
Right.
But those that call, we've been able to stand them up. So then we give them a warm lead, pass off to Fame. Fame now gets their information, make sure then they connect with the child, they do the assessments, they figure out where they are, and then they get them connected. We too then will follow up still to make sure everything's going well. How is the tutoring going? Is your child, is it progressing? Is that where we matched you, meeting your need? Now, we don't get to do that for every call, because right now our calls are up over 70%.
Oh, wow.
But we prioritize them based upon, I don't want to call them metrics. What do I want to call it? Maybe a protocol, right? Of those that have the highest needs. Seniors, you want to make sure we're following up with seniors, right? They kind of high need for people. We're following up for those that we might have placed specifically with another partner. The last thing we all know, because this frustrates me, I call somewhere and I get a voicemail, and then it wants me to press, and then I press, and then I got to press another person, and then I got to press right, and then I tell my story, and then they want to send me to someone. It is so frustrating.
Right.
So think about your experience, and if people are calling in crisis, we want them to be able to talk to a real person real quick, as fast as we can, and we want that person to have compassion and empathy. And I want my team to make sure they are treating you like it is the only call they ever received today.
Oh,
right?
wow.
When they're
Meeting
calling.
people where they are.
That's right, meeting people where they are.
With
right?
dignity and
with
respect.
dignity and respect, right? And if we're going to connect you to a service, we want to make sure it's a service that we know that can deliver. And we want to make sure that we follow up with that service.
Okay.
And we try to do that with the bulk of them. Some of them are just pass-offs, meaning that we know that if we send you to the Boys and Girls Club, or we send you to Latin American Community Center, or send you to West End, we know our partners have great credibility. They're generally good, right? And
right.
so, but if depending upon why you called us, it will determine if it needs a follow-up call. Now, if we can connect you to that coach, which we would prefer, now the coach is with you long term. So that coach could be with you for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. We are setting it up so the coach will stay with you as long as you want to stay with the coach.
Got it. And so now, as we kind of migrate the conversation, we've talked a lot about people coming into United Way seeking services. But for the rest of us that are watching, when we come back, let's take a quick break. But when we come back, I want to lead the discussion on how can the community and how can people support United Way. So stay tuned. We're going to come take a quick break, and we're going to come back and continue the conversation.
Did you know?
Always Best Care specializes in helping seniors who wish to remain in their home but need assistance. Our flexible care programs vary from hourly to live-in. Simply put, we're there when you need us. And Always Best Care is an approved Community Health Choices provider. Call today and we'll meet with you to develop a personalized care plan. Always Best Care Senior Services, doing more, caring more, and dedicated to exceeding your expectations. Always.
Always Best Care is a great place to work. Flexibility,
Leadership. Purpose.
great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity. Inclusion. Compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Did you know?
Welcome back to the Did You Know Show. I want to remind my listeners that you can catch me on the radio on Saturdays with WRDRadio.com or tune in to 96.1 FM or 900 AM on Saturdays at 4 p.m. It's the Did You Know Show live. So we continue our conversation today with Michelle Taylor. She is the President and Chief Executive Officer of United Way of Delaware. And we've been talking up to this point people seeking out the United Way for resources. But I want to change the conversation, if I can, to for those folks that are in the community that are in the position to support or donate, how do they do it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So right now, for people who may be connected to workplaces and campaigns that are running campaigns, the United Way campaigns are kicking off all around the state, right?
Okay.
And in Philadelphia, and in New Jersey, and so we hope that if you work within a workplace and you're employed and you're able to do that, that you'll support the United Way campaigns or through your giving campaign, right?
Okay.
So that's right. The second thing is we also have on our website, there's ways for the community to be able to give, and so you can go to www.uwde.org to give to United Way of Delaware. And there you can give to a couple different ways. We have our Racial Equity and Social Justice Fund, which is an arm of the work that we're doing in Delaware, aimed to eradicate systemic and institutional racism.
Okay.
And
How did that come about? As if I didn't know.
If you didn't know, right? Well, you know, we've actually been doing this, I would say, in a broad sense since inception, because we've always been fighting for to close the disparity gaps that existed, right? And
Okay.
in education and wealth creation or income and in health. You know, if you look at the data, not just in Delaware, across the country, again, generally it's brown and black families and kids and or those that are impacted by poverty are disproportionate, right, for
Okay.
where that gap exists overall. So we've been fighting for that. And then the last 5 years, since 2015, we've been partnering with and working on this in a collaborative effort. And I would say, you know, we were getting a drumbeat, and it, you know, as anything, you know this as you're out trying to make change in the community, that you do this a while and you just don't get the momentum that, you know, you got the same group of people who are always trying to be able to drive change.
Right.
It seems like, you know, they're driving it in the organizations, they're leaders in organizations, they're leaders in community, they're leaders in their church. And so we're making progress, but I would say, you know, it was kind of incremental and minimal. But then the death of George Floyd, right? And the visibility by so many people has really provoked or evoked, right, this need and desire for people to want to be a part of change in a massive way that has mobilized communities across the country that have really, you know, I would say there's a rainbow in this that is getting people off of the sidelines. And I mean all people. So, I mean, it's our young people that I think did a lot of the movement, right, that said enough is enough.
Right.
And that they're not going to be silent anymore, and they want a seat at the table, and they want to be able to decide what policies and procedures and practices look like. And so we were welcoming that as part of our racial equity and social justice work, and I'm sure others across the country and other communities. So, you know, we are trying to integrate that and blend that with them with some wisdom and knowledge and a network and support and infrastructure where hopefully we can use this moment in time to really advance change, right? And the fund, right, you can't, no matter what great idea you have, if you don't have resources to do it, it's like an idea or a dream, or, you know, we can keep talking, but it's generally just talk. And so the fund is designed really to be a fund for people, by people that are committed, right, to making real meaningful change at a systemic level related to race and equity. And so that we are pushing out, and people can go online and support that work. But then we just have a general opening. So we had a fund out there for the digital divide, for people who just wanted to help kids make sure they had Chromebooks and internet in their home, or access to internet.
Right.
You could, if you're interested in that, we put that out there because that's where we saw a critical need. And then it's just Give to United Way as a third option because you want to be able to support the work we're doing overall. So you asked me this earlier, how do we prioritize? In some cases, we prioritize our giving or elevate things up based upon where the biggest need is. So before then, there was a COVID fund. We were raising money for COVID. So
Okay.
COVID was out there for a long time, right? It still might be out there if you go. We didn't take it down off our website.
Okay.
But then they stood up a racial equity and social justice work. And then specifically, right, we got really narrow on if you just want to help to make sure every child, right, and particularly those that need it most have the internet and a Chromebook. We said we're going to put 100% of that and get those in the hands of kids. And then it's our general campaign. So we hope that there's lots of different ways that people can give. And so we hope that people will find one of them to support the work.
So when we talk about giving too, so it's clear to me in the beginning of the conversation, you connect people to other different veins and municipalities and funds and resources and that kind of a deal. But for people that are looking to give in the traditional sense, where, you know, it won't be long before we'll be at the holidays, and a lot of times people do the different donations, whether it's Toys for Tots or, you know, food or clothes donations. United Way is not a drop-off site, but you guys work with a lot of different community organizations, and you point people to that. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So normally we work with Nord Enterprise. They do the big turkey drive in the state, and it's a huge collaborative effort, but they are not doing it this year. And so we know that that need is going to be there for families, right, that normally need baskets. It was a great way to partner on a big statewide collaborative effort. So we're expecting that there's more people. I know we have a group that's focused on the Latino and Hispanic community called Latinos Unidos. And I know I just got something from them yesterday that they are working on getting some turkeys together to distribute within the Hispanic Latino community, so it might be very narrowly focused. Families might call 211. This is a good example of calling 211 and saying, I don't have any food, or do you know of anywhere that's actually giving away turkeys for Thanksgiving. So we will keep a list too, so that we know where to refer people, because sometimes people are doing it, but they're keeping a list, right, of where to drop them off. We work with the AFL-CIO every year, and they drop off turkeys, so we also partner and support their efforts. And we may say we got 25 families that's on the list, so they work with us to be able to do that too. But Christmas, right? Again, Latinos Unidos did this in a huge way. Hope I don't underestimate. I think they gave away like 4,000 toys last year.
Oh, wow.
They actually went out on Christmas Day to giving them and distributing toys out in the community. And so we work with amazing partners to collect those toys. And so we'll push that information out on the website as we get updated for it. I can imagine for this year, like all years, more families are impacted by the holidays more than normal, right? So I'm anticipating a much bigger need and request for just those basic elements, things again that we take for granted. Like I'm not thinking about, and I'm sure you're not either, worried about if you're going to have a turkey or not on Thanksgiving, or you're just going to have food. Forget a turkey.
And it's interesting because families are really, in a strange way. At least mine is. Traditionally, a lot of families get together, but because of social distancing and a lot of the different travel restrictions, and then the risk of travel, traditional travel, Christmas and the holiday seasons, which is soon coming, is going to be different. My question to you too, if we can go back a little bit, in the beginning, we talked about people, employed people, making a donation through their employer and that kind of thing. What about my retirees? Because, people like my mom, that's, retired, that's sitting around, not just sitting around, I don't mean like that, but people that have time to either volunteer or to donate that are not with a current employer, how do they get involved?
So that's a great point too, right? So, we've been doing a lot of outreach. We have something called You Volunteer that's also on our website that has tons of volunteer opportunities and ways that people can get engaged. So we want people to give, we want people to advocate, and we want them to volunteer.
Okay.
So they could do one of the three, they can do all three, they can do two or three. Like, we definitely want money, don't get me wrong, listeners, like money is important. But also your time is important. You think about advocacy, like with the census, right? We wanted volunteers to go out in the community or to expand their network or push it out on Facebook. I was talking to one of my son's friends. They told me he had like 80,000 followers. I was like, wow. 80,000 followers? I'm like, how do you get 80,000 followers? I need to figure that out, right?
Right.
But, some people have these huge followers, right? How do we help? How can they help us to get information out? How can they help to be able to spread the word, connect people ways? And as you said it earlier, reach people where they are.
Right.
So right now we're in a virtual environment. We recognize that people may not be able to leave their home. So we have virtual volunteer environments, right? There's things you can do from your home. There's things that we may need you to go into the community, like, meals still need to be delivered. There's work that's still happening, right? And out in the community in our environments. But there's lots of different ways. Website is the main place. We're trying to push it out. I don't know how old your mom is. Don't really know. But what I do know, or if you use like the social media. So we push a lot of stuff out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, trying to reach people, a wide range of people where they are. Websites are still there, right, that we push out the website overall. And we're doing a lot more smaller videos and opportunities like this to get out to share a message.
And and I need to say this because people of a certain age, and so the census tells us that 10,000 Americans turn 65 every single day because of the baby boomers. And a lot of those baby boomers, some of them are retiring, some are not retiring, but a lot of people of a certain age do not trust the internet and do not trust giving their information online and that kind of thing. And so if they go to the website, I'm sure there's an address where I don't want to say my old schoolers, but my people of a certain age, where they can mail a check.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I said that. My mother's friends, they don't like the internet either.
They don't deal with it, putting their credit card on the information. No, they're not doing that.
They want to mail a check, and we accept checks.
Please say it out loud.
We accept checks.
Because it's important. Because when we meet people where they are, whether they need resources or can give resources, we want to let them know that you can still write your check. It's important. And for that, why do partnerships matter from your perspective as the head of this organization in Delaware? Why do partnerships matter?
Partnerships are key. First of all, the issues that we're trying to address are too big. They're too complex. They're too large for any single organization to solve. There is virtually nothing we do at United Way on our own for that very reason, right? We need partners. And we as a community, we need each other, right? So it's not even just organizations. It's also about individuals. One individual likely standing alone can't get a policy change done, right? But if 100 individuals, teamed up, right, and used our voice, then all of a sudden we got some music going on. We have some volume to the same message.
Okay.
And so
I like that. I gotta use that.
And so so I call it a band. I tell people all the time, whatever your instrument is, bring it into the band. What we need you to do though is to play off of the same sheet of music.
Got it.
So, so we need to make sure that we got one song or a couple songs, but the music's the same. We can use all the instruments, right? It may sound a little different, if we've got more than one. But the intent is that we're all beginning to play the same music. We're dancing to the same sheet of music, singing the same song. I think is extremely important if we're actually going to try to meet the needs that exist in this community. One organization can meet one individual's needs, right? People say all the time, you want to go fast, go alone, right? If you really want to go for the long haul, right, you got to go together. And it really is about, we got to figure out how do we deal with some of the issues that are confronting our community. That's the problem. We deal with them on the surface a whole lot of times, and we'll always be dealing with them on the surface if we don't figure out how to cut them off at the core root.
When I think of partnerships, and I want to say this out loud, you don't have to be a big organization or a big company to partner with United Way. Can women and minority and small businesses partner with United Way?
Absolutely.
Are you guys open to that?
Yeah, you know that, right? Everyone could partner with United Way, right? I mean, that's one of the things, like with the racial equity and social justice work, we put right in there, all are welcome. Right? We
diversity and inclusion.
That's right, diversity because this isn't some exclusive work, right? This is about community work, and we all live in the community. We say this all the time, like live united, which we say is more than a slogan. Like we really want people to live united. We're the kumbaya. Like why can't we get to center, right? It's not so much of what we disagree on. Why can't we focus more on what we do agree on?
Wow. And so let's take a quick break. And on the other side, I want to talk about, we've talked about a lot of different things that the United Way has done from, connecting people to resources, to people, donating on so many different levels, and sending the check, Mom, because she would definitely want to know. But when we come back, I want to continue the conversation and talk about the job readiness program. You guys do a lot to get people out there for interview preparation and that kind of a deal. So let's take a quick break, come back on the other side, and we'll continue the conversation. Stay tuned, don't go anywhere.
Did you know?
Always Best Care specializes in helping seniors who wish to remain in their home but need assistance. Our flexible care programs vary from hourly to live-in. Simply put, we're there when you need us. And Always Best Care is an approved Community Health Choices provider. Call today and we'll meet with you to develop a personalized care plan. Always Best Care Senior Services, doing more, caring more, and dedicated to exceeding your expectations. Always.
Always Best Care is a great place to work. Flexibility,
leadership,
Purpose.
great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity. Inclusion. Compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Did you know?
Welcome back to the Did You Know Show, and I'm sitting here today, and we're having a great conversation with Michelle Taylor, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the United Way in Delaware. And As we wind down the show, Michelle, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about how United Way is helping a lot of individuals get prepared to either re-enter the job force or just enter the job force. And tell us about it.
Yeah. So we spend a lot of time really working with young people to prepare them to be the workforce that our corporations are going to need tomorrow.
Okay.
And primarily we focus a lot on high school students, some middle school. We're trying to work down to the middle school and high school with a targeted focus on kids that like what we like to call come from our promise communities, right? We like to think of our communities from an asset perspective and our kids not from a deficit. And so, you know this, you and I talk about it all the time, right? How do you help to instill those soft skills? So I've sat in a lot of meetings with employers, and employers say, well, you know, we don't have the talent we need, and specifically they don't come with the soft skills that are so needed. If you give me someone with the soft skills, I can teach them the technical piece of it, right? But, you know, we need kids that know how to be able to show up to work every day, on time, can look you in the eye, can follow directions, put the cell phone down. I was about to get this right. Someone used one in a corporation one time and said, you know, they don't want to deal with, you know, they got in a fight with their boyfriend or girlfriend, right? And so, you know, that spoiled their whole day. You know, I had a young person here I hired one time, she's around. I found her cell phone in the bathroom. I took it, and so I told them to tell her to come see me. Instead, she's running around the building. She's all upset. She's crying. She's in the car. And I knew she was doing it, but I refused to go get her because I told them to come see her. And they were like, that she said she was busy. I was like, busy looking for a phone that I know where it is, but if she wants to run around the building. And so finally, literally, this is a real story, about like 20 minutes later, she comes in, she's like crying, I lost my cell phone. I was like, this cell phone? Oh, her demeanor changed. I said, how much time did you spend? Like, I'm paying you. Right? I said, on my dime, right, my dollar, you're out looking for a cell phone. And how many of the other employees did you have around here looking for a cell phone? Like, you got to understand the implications of that. So I use that as a teachable moment.
It's a real conversation to have.
It's a real conversation. And so we try to create, I would say, safe spaces for kids to learn, to make mistakes, to give them that safety net. You know, we do it here specifically with the young people that we hire, but we also are trying to advocate and champion that with the partners we work for, right, to create those same environments. But at the same time, right, you can't cut them breaks because the world's not going to cut them breaks, right, when they go in the community. And you still have to have the bar. We have that conversation all the time about, but they do in this teachable space, right, you got to give them room to make some mistakes and grow and to learn so that when they can fly more, right, and then they leave working from here and go work for you or go work for a bank across the street, right, that they're prepared.
They have some real job skills.
They have some real job skills that you prepared. So we do a lot of that, and tying it into, we were talking earlier about financial stability, we also have something that we're working with our Stand By Me with high school students to try to teach them early on too about money. Talk to us about what do you want to be when you grow up. We have them research it, how much do they make, and then you have them say, if this is how much you make, then we try to teach them what a budget, talk to us about what you want to live, what does it look like. Then that's kind of put that into a budget, right? And then we talk about what is it going to take for you to be able to get there, right? So let's start talking about the education you need or the technical skills or requirements to start to connecting the kids that says, if this is your dream and this is the lifestyle you want, then here's what it's going to really take to do it. Because a lot of time people think, right, Brian, we just get to where we are, right? We just waved the magic wand, not knowing that we too had to work our way up, and it required a lot of discipline and a lot of those soft skills, right, in play. And so that's really, really a core part of what we are trying to do, because we want to make sure there is a talented pool, a diverse, talented pool that this community has to be able to, both that they get to be able to see, right, as they're looking for a workforce, but hopefully a workforce that has options, right?
Do you work with a population that English isn't their first language?
We do. In some of our programs, we do that through partnerships, though. We do it through the Latin American Community Center, and we do it with Work First State, Community Action downstate, down in Sussex. We work a little bit with La Esperanza, but we work with working with the Hispanic community, right, and Latino community is one of the populations. You heard me say that we have staff on staff with, and we do a lot of outreach to make sure that happens.
You've been with United Way for a very long time. For you, from your perspective in leadership or just in the community, how has the community changed over the years?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. Well, the community is, think about it, big still for our economy. When I first started United Way in 2000, the economy was booming.
Ha.
And I don't know if you remember MBNA, but MBNA was
I
around.
remember that. I remember that.
So, like for my first 7 years, I was actually hired to help to keep up with the growth we were having, and it was happening so fast.
Okay.
And you don't realize when you're living in a growth economy, right, how good you have it until, remember when the economy plummeted, in the 2007, 2008, right? Huge unemployment started to go up, right? The housing market tanked. Businesses started to consolidate and collapse in here. So what I've seen in our
Job
eliminations, right? And so a lot of that took place. And quite honestly, that became the new norm for us, right? We never got back to those early 2000 years. And ever since, there's some change or transition, and then that becomes the new norm. I wonder now as we're going through COVID, what does this look like? We talk about what's the new norm going to look like. Who knows, right? I was saying, years from now, my granddaughters might say, if I tell them that we used to walk around with no mask, and they'd be like, what?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Because in their world, you don't know what's coming yet still, right?
And you have all these virtual meetings too. I can't help but to wonder, somebody like me that have multiple offices, right? And so now I'm rethinking office space,
right?
And then what that looks like in the future.
That's right.
And then maybe in 10, 15, 20 years from now, are people that's going to be doing virtual at all? It was a time, if you grew up in a certain time frame, you looked at the Jetsons as kind of that futuristic situation,
Yeah.
and now here we are. We're not driving around in the air. But will we be? And
drones are dropping off stuff. That's how some people in some communities they figured out how to drop off Halloween candy. This is going to get dropped off from that groceries, right? Walmart's figured out how to be able to do this stuff. But I think that's also had an impact, right, on jobs to a large degree. I mean, I went into even take something like I went into the Walmart. I haven't been there in a long time. And they had all the self-serve stations. They took out,
that wears
where they
me
had cashiers.
out.
Yeah, and so now it's all these self-serve, which I don't have a problem with that. But I think if people want me to ring up my own stuff, Walmart, you should give me a discount at the end for when I do it. I should get something off. So I'm one of those people. I will wait in line generally for a person, right? But all of that stuff though has impacted employment. And employability skills. I mean, at one time, right, you could graduate from high school here in Delaware. You talk about changes in my generation time, right, and definitely my parents graduate, get a great job at DuPont, work there for 30 years, and retire. You could go work for Chrysler and GM, who's not here anymore, right? Great industries. A lot of the middle class was built off of these great jobs and places that people work. You wonder about the next generation. What are the jobs that they're going to need? I hear people say that 80% of them haven't even been invented yet. It's hard for me to imagine, right, that 80%, but I would agree probably a large percentage of what the workforce is going to look like then, to your point, the Jetsons or something similar. But just think about it. Think about our virtual jobs. Used to have, could our staff commute? People want to do this telecommuting. Maybe not. Now, everyone, a large percentage of people, right, are working from home. So where we were maybe dancing around the idea before, it's now become normal.
And very, very practical in a lot of ways. I'm never so on time for meetings as I was before with the Zoom meetings. Michelle Taylor, President and Chief Executive Officer of United Way. It has been really great. As we wind down the show, what is the parting message that you want our viewers to know?
Yeah, so the main thing I want people to know is, look, we have a race to run. Like, the baton is in our hands. There are a lot of people in our community, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers that need us, that's counting on us, right? Our kids and grandkids and great-grandkids are counting on us. So what are you going to do with it? One of my favorite things with in Hamilton in a movie says, I'm not going to waste my shot. That is my challenge to you, right? Don't waste your shot in order to be able to do big or small, whatever you can do. Join the race, run it to your fullest, because we all need you if we're going to get to a place where this is a great community that we really want to live, work, and play in.
If you're looking and you're thinking about either donating, whether that's online or writing a check, you certainly can. And the United Way, we're talking to Michelle. Michelle is down in the Delaware. She's just, the United Way of Delaware. But the United Way is a national, is it an international program? Or
It is international.
It is an international program. And it's just so many things that you really would not, I've learned a lot, from the 211 program to the racial equity, the social justice, what you guys do for education, what you do for wealth, and then the pandemic is the current state of affairs that we're navigating for that. You have all of these buzzwords like diversity and inclusion. You want to know about unconscious bias. For me, United Way was until recently was a company or entity that from an employer's perspective, you wrote on your employer and you picked out, or maybe you didn't pick out, some charities, and United Way managed that for you. But now I learned that, United Way is this robust resource that you guys are down here in the grassroots, and you temporarily, and you said it earlier, I'm gonna bring it back, you temporarily said you guys are taking calls 7 days a week as opposed to 5 days a week.
That's right.
And you're helping people connect to services, and I just think it's a great situation. I'll put you on the spot. Is United Way hiring, or are you looking for volunteers?
We're always looking for volunteers. We're
Okay.
not hiring at the moment, but we are definitely looking for volunteers.
And what is a volunteer there? Because there's a lot of kids now in education that have to do community service, whether you're in a public or parochial school. That is a part of the curriculum. So how does you talked about the kid financial literacy and job readiness programs and that kind of thing. Is that something that you can go to the website and look for too?
Yeah, or under You Volunteer or all of our volunteer opportunities.
You volunteer. All right. So again, thank you so much, Michelle Taylor, for really opening our minds and our mind space, with all of this information about United Way. Again, my name is Brian Green. The show is brought to you today by Always Best Care Senior Services. We're certainly proud of our partnership with United Way and really, again, trying to bring alternatives to people that are in need or are in a position to really help others. Again, check me out on Saturdays at 4 p.m. on WRD 96.1 FM or 900 AM. Follow us at ABC_Philly or ABC_Delaware. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.
Did you know he'll help you understand? Did you know always a right-hand man? Did you know he's gonna make it clear? Did you know? Come on, listen here. Did you know?
Always Best Care is a great place to work.
Flexibility.
Leadership. Purpose.
Great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity. Inclusion. Compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.